Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today is another stitch with me while I continue working on Carolyn Manning Designs Phoenix. Absolutely love this design, and I know I say that every single time, but I really have enjoyed working on this again, and I can't wait to take it to the retreat and really get some good stitching time in. So, thank you to everyone who commented about Charlize's grade and all that yesterday. So I got an update from my mother, and it makes me wonder, is Charlize telling the truth? Because, okay, so we thought it was because her paper was in cursive. So my mom, I asked her yesterday after I recorded the video, I messaged her and was like, hey, did Charlize ever get this straightened out? And my mom said, she emailed the teacher, and the teacher said, and you're going to love this. The teacher said, if you didn't get them all right on the quiz, you got a 0. What? Charlize had 19 out of 20 correct. And the teacher said, if you fix the one you got wrong, I'll give you credit. What the hell kind of quiz is that? If you have to get all of them right or you get a 0. I've never heard of such a thing. I mean, it's been a long time since I was in school, but doesn't grading the papers, like the way they're graded, should carry over? Now, I do remember when we were in school, and Bill and I were talking about this a little while ago. When we were in school, you were not allowed to make up a grade. Like, if you got a D on a test, that was your fucking grade. It wasn't like, oh, you can redo it and get a better grade. It seems to be very different nowadays. Yeah. So I actually did some diamond painting yesterday. So because I've been trying to pre-record, I'm trying to record when I stitch in diamond paint. So, if I can get ahead of it, then I only have to do the voiceover. So I diamond painted for like an hour yesterday. So yeah, I got some good diamond painting in, and I'm almost finished a section. So that's pretty cool. And, yesterday, I've been off. It's actually busy days. Like, I went and I mailed all of the bobbins to Brandon and the floss, and that only cost me $16. So I was very happy about that because that box was heavy, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to cost me a fortune to do this. It didn't. So, by the time I did that and got myself ready and did laundry and stuff like that, man, I could easily fill the day and not work. Easily. But it was nice because I was able to sit down by about 1:30, 2 o'clock, diamond paint. Yeah. It's been good, though, having the time off. Absolutely. And my boss is doing better. She is feeling a tiny bit better. Remember, she has COVID, but she is doing better. So I'm thinking, but I've been looking at some emails because I have access to her email. They're trying to do the rest of the arbitration remotely, which I don't think they're going to go for that, the arbitrators. But they're trying to add more dates. And I went, oh my God. Because, okay, all they can do, like they gave each side a certain amount of time, right? And we've done 11 days of the arbitration. And one of the attorneys brought up a point and was like, look, here's how much time we've used. We're going to need to add days on. So I was like, fucking kill me now. They want to add 12 dates. I went, oh, Jesus. So this may stretch into 2022. Guess we're going to see about that. I guarantee you I haven't said boo about nothing to the team because until it's like concrete, they're adding dates. I'm like, oh. Yeah. All right, so let's get into today's story. Yeah, there really wasn't. Bill and I caught up on some TV last night. We watched Big Brother. We're like weeks behind. Because when I have the arbitration, we don't watch any TV because I'm not getting done until 7-ish. And yeah, it's just too late to watch something by that time. Okay, so today's story is called Don't Believe a Word. And it is another unexplained, unsolved mystery story. We like those though, because I like to tell you what I think happened. And obviously in the story, they also project what the theories that people have had, police and investigators and things like that. Okay. So the match was perhaps not what Cindy Hack's friends and family might have expected. Cindy was blonde and gorgeous and just 19 years old. Ooh. Her intended, Dr. Roy Makepeace, was handsome and an eminent psychiatrist, but at 37, he was 18 years her senior. What the fuck? Okay, we've talked about this before with ages of people. 19 and 37, 18 years, huge difference when someone's 19 and someone's 37. My mom and stepdad are 12 years apart, and my first husband was 7 years older than me. When you get older, like when someone is 30 and you're dating someone that's 48, that's still, I feel like, a wide range, but it's not as wide as when someone is 19, and just my opinion. So Cindy had met Roy while working as a nurse at Blenheim House, a facility for emotionally troubled children in Vancouver, Canada. She would not be the first nor the last nurse to fall for an older doctor. I'm sure it happens all the time, right? Still, the pair appeared happy together, and that was the only thing that mattered. Despite the dire predictions of some, the marriage would endure for 25 years before it eventually ran aground in 1982. That's impressive, I have to say. 25 years married. Yeah, that's impressive. So even then, the couple remained on good terms. They would even date occasionally, really. So they would still... I remember, just a little side note, when my first husband and I separated, I was the one that initiated the separation. And he didn't want a divorce. He didn't want a separation. And I had to move back in with my mom for 6 months. Fucking 28 years old, moving back in with your mother. Yeah. Slept on a sofa bed because my bedroom was gone, right? Anyway, I remember my then still husband calling and being like, well, let's go out on a date. And I'm like, are you high? Like, it was almost like I think he wanted to try to start over, but I was already so past that point. Yeah. Okay. But 1982, so they divorced in 1982. But 1982 was also the year that dark clouds first appeared on Cindy's horizon, clouds that announced the coming of a storm no one could have anticipated. It started on October 12th of that year when Cindy called the police to report that she was receiving obscene and threatening phone calls. And in 1982, I was in second grade. There was no caller ID. There was no nothing. You had to call. You could probably call and get a tap put on your phone maybe, but there was no caller ID and all that crap that we have now. So that was followed in quick succession by complaints about a prowler, a rock thrown through a kitchen window, and the pillows on her bed being slashed. Oh, shit. That means somebody was in her apartment or her house. So, yeah, this last incident particularly concerned the police. It appeared that Cindy had attracted a stalker and that he had been inside her house. So who, though, right? Who is it? Who might be targeting the recent divorcee? The obvious suspect was her ex-husband, but Cindy was adamant that her divorce had been amicable and that she and Roy had a cordial relationship. Besides, it was Roy who had urged her to call the police after the pillow slashing incident, so it definitely wasn't Roy. But who else? Somebody else that got pissed off about her dating the doctor and being married to him all that time? Okay, Pat McBride, the officer who had responded to the call, wasn't so sure. He recommended that Cindy install deadbolts on her doors and even volunteered to do the work for her. Sus. This wasn't entirely altruistic on his part. McBride was attracted to the striking divorcee and made his intentions clear soon after, and by the end of October, the two of them had moved in together. What? Wow. Okay, so, now she probably feels some level of safety because she's now living with a police officer. You would think, right? But having a police officer on the premises did not seem to discourage the stalker. In mid-November, Cindy discovered the picture of a corpse under the windshield of her car, and shortly after, her telephone line was cut. I would be scared out of my mind. I can't imagine it. Also in November, McBride found Roy Makepeace in the alleyway behind Cindy's house carrying a rifle with a handgun stashed in his waistband. The doctor said he was there to protect his ex-wife. Do you think it's the doctor? Now I'm starting to think it's the doctor, right? So you might think that with all of these things going on in her life, Cindy would have been glad to have a protector around. However, by early December, she had asked McBride to move out, so he only lived with her for 2 months. Now the stalking incidents escalated with phone calls and letters that contained gruesome pictures and menacing words and phrases. But these were just words, just pictures, nothing that could cause actual harm. But that was to change on January 27th, 1983. Dun, dun, dun. Right? On that day, officers responded to a call from Cindy's house and found her unconscious in her garage. How did she call? I guess we're going to find out. She later told the police that she had answered a knock at her back door and had been accosted by a man who had grabbed her and dragged her to the garage. And here a second man was waiting. The assailants then slashed her with a knife and knotted a black stocking around her neck, pulling it so tight that she passed out. She could remember very little afterwards, but had a vague memory of being sexually penetrated with the handle of the knife. Jesus! Thankfully, though, she had suffered no serious injuries other than a dozen small cuts to her arms and legs, believed to have been inflicted with a scalpel. What? Okay. The doctor, sus, right? Yeah. So this attack on her person was the last straw for Cindy. So shortly after, she moved. Oh, Lord, it's the fucking it's the ex-husband. She moved out of her house and accepted her ex-husband's offer to move into the home they had shared during their marriage. Oh, well, wait a minute. Roy was living elsewhere at the time. Despite his apparent generosity, though, the police had now flagged Roy Makepeace as their number one suspect. Okay, because if this person is stalking her, right, it wouldn't matter where she moved. They would find her. If they're stalking her, they're going to know where she's going. Am I wrong? The cops also believed that Cindy knew more than she was saying and asked her to take a polygraph, and she agreed and failed. What? Please don't tell me she's behind this too, because there are people that do that. Why? Afterwards, she admitted that she did know the identity of one of her attackers. She refused to name him, though, claiming that her family would be in danger if she did. What? Okay. This story gets more and more strange. In the spring of 1983, Cindy made yet another move, her third in as many months. Kill me now. Well, let me rephrase that. I hate moving. Moving is awful. If this was designed to throw off her stalker, it failed dismally. I told you, they're going to find her. The harassing calls started up again immediately, and they continued even after a fourth move. Good God. With the poor woman now hovering dangerously close to a breakdown, Roy Makepeace suggested that she take a vacation and financed a trip for her to visit her brother in Jakarta. Cindy would spend nearly a month in Indonesia, enjoying a respite from 18 months of terror, but that reprieve would be short-lived. No sooner was she back in Canada than her stalker started up again, and he was escalating. The fact that this is going to be unsolved is so troubling to me already, because it's like, who and why? So on August 22nd, 1983, the first of many threatening letters arrived at Cindy's workplace, Blenheim House. So she still worked at the place where she had met the doctor. 2 months later, a strangled cat was placed on her lawn, along with a note that read, "You're next. Kitty!" Have you guys seen that movie, though, called You're Next? Just as a little tangent. My stepdaughter and I really liked it. My husband didn't like it. It's this family gathers together at this house to celebrate the parents' wedding anniversary. And they start getting killed off one by one. It's so so good. It's an older movie. It's a couple years old. What? It's on, I just saw it. Is it on Hulu? It's on one of the, you can get it for like if you have Hulu or Netflix. Some. I saw it last night on there. Okay. So just 2 weeks after that, someone trashed her garden. And in the weeks that followed, there were more letters and 2 more murdered cats. Jesus. Stop murdering the pets. Thanks. Okay. Bye. Yeah. By November, Pat McBride was suggesting that she hire a private investigator, both for protection and to find out who was behind this. He recommended his friend Ozzie Caban, and Cindy was happy to go with that. Caban's presence at least brought her some peace over Christmas. At around 6 o'clock on the evening of January 30th, 1984, Ozzie Caban received a desperate call from his client, Cindy, saying that she was being attacked in her home. Caban raced over to her residence, arriving less than 15 minutes later. The front door was locked and he had to force his way in. He found Cindy lying on the floor, a paring knife driven straight through her left hand. Ah! No. A black stocking knotted tightly around her neck. She had also been struck on the head and there was a needle mark on her right arm, although later tests would find no foreign substances in her bloodstream. Thank God for that. Questioned by police, Cindy insisted that she could remember nothing about the attack. However, the cops were certain that she was hiding something and they thought they knew what it was. Roy remained on the top of their suspect list. Pressed on her relationship with her ex, Cindy eventually admitted that their marriage had not been as perfect as she had suggested in the past. She said that Roy had often threatened her and sometimes physically abused her. This admission resulted in Roy being hauled in for questioning, but he remained unwavering during 6 hours of intense interrogation. 6 hours. He would never hurt Cindy, he insisted. He did, however, have an idea of who might. He suggested that she might have angered an organized crime family through one of the traumatized kids she was working with. Maybe. The police would never follow up on this seemingly far-fetched lead, however. Instead, they subjected Cindy to another polygraph, which she passed. Meanwhile, the harassment continued with letters to Cindy's home and workplace, cut phone wires, broken windows, and another murdered cat. What the fuck with the cats? I don't know how you wouldn't, really have a breakdown. I mean, this has been going on for 2 years now. In another incident, someone broke in while Cindy was at work and inflicted a beating on her little dog, Heidi. I can't with the pets. Stop it. Stop it right now. Please. So, called in to investigate this incident, Ozzie Caban found a sexually explicit birthday note and a cigarette butt of a brand that Cindy did not smoke. Okay. At around 8:30 p.m. on July 3rd, 1984, Cindy called Caban and told him that she was taking her dog for a walk in Dunbar Park. 3.5 hours later, a resident in the area answered a knock at his door and found Cindy collapsed on his porch, a black stocking knotted tightly around her neck. She later told the police that a green van had stopped beside her as she was walking home, a bearded man at the wheel and a blonde woman in the passenger seat. So strange. The man had asked for directions, and that was the last thing she remembered. A physical examination would find 2 needle marks on her arm, but no drugs in her system other than her prescribed antidepressants. This is such a strange story. By now, the detectives working on Cindy's case were beginning to have their first doubts about her stories. Oh, they're thinking it's her now. It all seemed too bizarre, these frequent attacks by seemingly random strangers. Caban was still a believer, though, and in August 1984, he brought Cindy to hypnotist Hal Booker, hoping that she might remember more under hypnosis. That first session uncovered nothing of note, but the second brought a stunning revelation. Cindy remembered that she had once witnessed a double homicide. During the third session with Detective Chris present, Cindy recalled even more. She revealed that during a 1981 yacht trip with Roy, he had murdered and dismembered a young couple on Thornmanby Island. What? This was huge. Yeah, no shit. Far bigger than the current investigation into Cindy's stalker. And it also turned out to be untrue. Cindy's sister Melanie had also been on that trip and had seen nothing unusual. The police also could find no evidence of anyone who had gone missing from Thornmanby Island during that time frame. I'm probably saying that totally wrong. Thornmanby? Maybe. It only served to strengthen the growing belief that Cindy was making things up. But why would you make up harassment for like 3 years? Right? Over the next 6 months, the harassing letters and phone calls continued, driving Cindy deeper and deeper into a pit of despair. She was losing weight and isolating herself from friends and work colleagues. Her family was genuinely afraid that she might self-harm, and those fears were vindicated in June of 1985 when she swallowed a handful of pills. Ugh. That saw her confined to the hospital for a week. She was released on the understanding that she would stay with family. Instead, she returned home and walked straight into a renewed campaign of harassment. What the actual fuck? First, her phone line was cut. Then she found a cosmetics case on her porch packed with rotting meat. What? Then her stalker resorted to arson, apparently trying to start fires at her residence on 3 separate occasions. However, the police found no evidence of a break-in, suggesting that Cindy herself must have started the fires. If she didn't do it, can you imagine being accused of doing this stuff to yourself? Wow. The cops also conducted a week-long surveillance during which nothing untoward happened. The clincher was a renewed round of harassing calls, which, according to phone company records, Cindy had made herself. What? No! Cindy, we've been sympathetic to your plight right now. Now more convinced than ever that Cindy was faking, the detective passed on the case files to a colleague, Detective Carol Halliday, and asked for her opinion. After reviewing the files, Halliday concurred she believed that Cindy was staging the incidents herself, although the reason was uncertain, like why. Soon the police would have another episode to investigate. Why are you doing this? On December 11th, 1985, Cindy took a lunch break from work and never returned. She was found hours later wandering on the University of British Columbia campus without shoes or a coat in the middle of a Canadian winter. A black stocking was knotted around her throat and there was a needle mark on her arm. Incoherent and confused, she was unable to remember what had happened to her. What? This time, however, the police had decided to confront Cindy head on because the gloves were off. Like, they were probably tired, right? Cindy was informed in no uncertain terms that she was faking and that she might face criminal prosecution if she persisted. She was also advised to see a psychiatrist, something she declined to do. And if the police thought they had solved the case by putting a scare on Cindy, they would soon be proved wrong. In April 1986, she reported another arson attack blaming her ex-husband, but Roy at that time was attending a conference in South Africa, and so he wasn't responsible. This latest incident saw Cindy evicted from her home and forced to take a 6-month leave of absence from work. So now she's depressed and suicidal. Even the unlicensed therapist she was seeing now believed she was faking. He recommended committal to St. Paul's Hospital, where a staff psychologist agreed that everything that had happened to Cindy, the harassment, the attacks, the apparent attempts on her life, were all a figment of her imagination, all the result of psychotic behavior on her part. She might not even have been aware of what she was doing. Maybe this was the result of multiple personality disorder, with one part of her psyche deliberately tormenting another. It was a neat theory, one that might even have been validated had Cindy not ended up dead. What? Sis. Okay. On July 15, 1986, Cindy was released from the psychiatric ward at St. Paul's, although she remained under the outpatient supervision of Dr. Friesen and showed considerable improvement under his care. In September, she changed her name to Cindy James and bought a house in the Vancouver suburb of Richmond, where she lived without apparent harassment from her tormentors. Okay. It was not all plain sailing, though. In November, she was fired from Blenheim House for poor work performance. This was a blow to Cindy, who loved working with children. However, she showed her newfound resilience by landing on her feet and finding employment at Richmond General. So the bad old days of mysterious attackers and threatening letters and murdered cats seemed to be behind her. Then, in late August of 1987, Cindy reported that someone had cut a screen at her home and pried open a window. A month later, she reported a broken window, and in February 1988, an attempted break into her basement, so things were escalating again. This is now going on for 6 years, by the way, if you have not been doing the math. At around midnight on October 26, 1988, private investigator Ali Caban was awakened by an alarm he had installed at Cindy's home. Caban raced to the residence and found Cindy hiding in the garage, partially nude, a black stocking knotted around her neck, her hands and feet bound behind her back with another stocking. Cindy claimed that she had been ambushed while getting out of her car. The police, by now familiar with these incidents, put it down to another elaborate hoax, and they would soon be proved wrong. Well, how would you tie your own hands behind your back, first of all? I'm guessing it's probably possible, but On May 26, 1989, Cindy began a week-long vacation from her job at Richmond General Hospital. She was in good spirits that day, running a number of errands, buying a gift for a friend's upcoming birthday, and going for a beauty treatment. She had also invited friends around to play bridge that night, but when they arrived, they found the place locked and in darkness. Confused and concerned, they drove away, only to spot Cindy's car parked in front of a Safeway at a strip mall a few blocks from her house. Stopping to investigate, they noticed blood on the driver's side door, and they immediately called police. The search for Cindy would continue for a week before construction workers found her body in an abandoned house about a half a mile from where her car had been discovered. Cindy was lying on her side, fully clothed, her hands and feet tied behind her back with the black stocking. There was a needle mark on her arm, and this time something had been introduced into her system. An autopsy would reveal that she had died from an overdose of morphine and other drugs. On the face of it, she appeared to be the victim of a brutal homicide. However, the police thought differently. They believed Cindy committed suicide. Well, remember, she was a nurse, so she would have access to the needles, right, and the morphine. Now, it's easy to sympathize with the authorities on this. They had had 7 years of dealing with Cindy, investigating close to 100 separate incidents in that time. They also had several eminent psychiatrists backing up their theory that Cindy had staged these incidents and might be suffering from multiple personality disorder. However, the condition that Cindy's body was found in simply does not back up the finding of suicide. It is near impossible to tie one's own hands and feet behind one's back, just what I said. Aside from that, there is Cindy's demeanor on the day she died. Would someone who was planning to commit suicide really go for a makeover? Would they buy a gift for an upcoming birthday? Would they really invite friends over for a card game? No, that doesn't make sense, right? So the idea that Cindy killed herself falls short of the mark on numerous counts. And the Vancouver coroner seemed to share that opinion. He refused to call the death a suicide, but he also stopped short of calling it a murder. Instead, Cindy's death was recorded under the vague term unknown event, and 2 decades later, we still do not know what happened to her, if she really was stalked, if she really was murdered, and if so, by who and why. Perhaps we will never know. That's highly disturbing. I hate that we do not know. And you can make the case for both sides that she did it, but why? Unless, like the psychiatrist may have said, she had multiple personality. That's such a strange case. I mean, over 100 incidents. Here's the thing, though. Usually, stalkers like that, you would think it would escalate where they would really do something to you. I can't imagine that it would go on for 6 years, but what do I know, right? So odd. Have you guys heard of that case? I hate that we don't know the outcome of that. Okay. I'm going to read you a positive affirmation for success and happiness. These are going to be short because I have a website marked that has 40 of them. So Okay, this is from Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. I have read some of her stuff. I like this one because it makes you think that, you know, I know a lot of times we probably question what we're doing in life. Are we on the right path? Are we doing the right thing? So this one says, I am in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. You know, all we can do every day is the next best thing, the next best step, right? And all we can do is the best we can. Some days are better than others. But if you can say to yourself, I'm in the right place at the right time doing the right thing, that would give a lot of us some comfort. So I hope you are having a great day. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so very much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.